Interesting. 3 statistical secrets that you need to know heading into the Netherlands Grand Prix. Welcome to the Pitwall. Let's go. Normally, the race following the Belgian Grand Prix is Monza, 2 high-speed tracks where you can take the data from Belgium and apply it to Italy. But now we're going to the next door neighbor, a track in Zandvoort, a little bit over a 3-hour drive if you wanted to make the trip. The circuit that we will be looking at right here, the circuit of Zandvoort, which brings us now to the description by Formula1.com. As you can see, there are 2 DRS zones, and that huge long straight is where a lot of the overtakes are going to happen before the corner, and its first Grand Prix in 1952. Here we are after a while, getting it back on the calendar last year, mainly due to the Orange Army that has been supporting Max Verstappen. I know this is an ad, I know this is on Twitter, this is our partner with Aston Martin, but as you can see how they swing around the track here in this graphic. 14 corners, 72 laps, in a very short lap time when you get up that high into the laps. Another way to analyze from F1 data analysis, this is Russell's fastest lap around this track from FP1, and here are the gears that he's in. They can only hit 8th gear down the main straight. Look how often they're getting down into those low gears of 4th and 3rd. In all these corners, a lot of them are banked, and as Peter Windsor described, as line locking with a lot of traffic around the short lap. And that's what we witnessed last year. And what line locking means is, with the exception perhaps of first corner and then passing opportunities, you got one option around the corner and the other guy's got to pick his line. No switching midway through corner, no cutbacks. And so that's going to make it very difficult for passing, or what Alonso experienced during FP2, it's going to be hard to get a good lap in while there's bunches of traffic. Our second statistical secret is about the reliability of the cars, but also how does traffic play into where they're going to be for qualifying and the race. Let's start off with Ricciardo. It was just announced that Oscar Piastri has been signed to McLaren. Last week there was the announcement that Ricciardo's 3rd year wasn't going to be happening, but here he is trying to drive his best, but in FP2 he had some technical issues, kept him out for a lot of the time. FP1 though, Verstappen had a gearbox issue and they broke the seal in the gearbox and found that he had problems shifting from 4th to 5th. Let's go back to that Twitter post so you can see where on the track this was impacting him the most. Everywhere that you see the green to pink, that's where we have this issue. So first corner, coming out of that first corner into the second corner, coming out. Look at all these major corners where if you have problems with your gearbox shifting, you could have potentials of breaking down. Hopefully they got it fixed, but keep that in mind. So let's see, how did this gearbox issue impact Verstappen's lap times, and how can we anticipate how he can recover this race? As you can see here with Verstappen sitting out during a lot, free practice session 1, only 7 laps. He was at the back of the pack. And then during free practice session 2, he was only 8th fastest because they had to worry about his setup. And that is very alarming when you're looking over here on the right and you're seeing the Red Bull of Perez 10th and Verstappen 14th. And then we have a mix-up of things because both Mercedes were the top of the timesheets in FP1, and then both Ferraris in FP2, which brings then Sainz and Hamilton and Russell tied for 3rd best. Leclerc, Norris at 4th best, and then you get a jump down to Alonso, Ricciardo in 8th, Stroll and Ocon in 9th. If you scroll down to our constructors, you've got Mercedes, Ferrari neck and neck, followed by McLaren, Alpine, and Red Bull. So let's now compare this to last year, though, in 2021. I've provided, now you're going to have to notice here on the left, every time you see Russell, that was actually Bottas. Every time you see Zhou, that was actually Giovinazzi. Every time you see Bottas, that was Raikkonen. Everywhere you see Albon, it's Russell. Magnussen was Mazepin. Verstappen, during free practice session 1, was 2nd fastest at a 1:11. And what we were seeing before was multiple seconds slower this year, and that's because of the new regulations. Free practice session 2, he was 5th. But look at Hamilton, who was 1st in FP1, 11th fastest in FP2 with only 3 laps. So he had, I believe, an engine issue that blew up on him at the second free practice session. Look at this. Just like this year, you had both Ferraris in P3, you had Verstappen P4, Russell, then you had the Alpines scrolling down. So we had Mercedes this year, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, Red Bull. Last year, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, Red Bull, and then McLaren was off the pace a little bit. But look where they qualified. We had Ferrari qualifying 5th and 6th, Mercedes 2 and 3, Alpine 8 and 9, Red Bull pole, and then Perez got caught up in traffic during qualifying and was in 16th. And so this is where we deal with, is your driver going to get out at the right time to make sure that they get the position? We can see though that the McLarens are 10 and 13th. Perez was able to do a comeback drive and finish P8. Verstappen was on pole, finished as Hamilton was trying to put pressure on him, but Hamilton would always get traffic at the wrong time, and Verstappen was able to clear that traffic, and that's why Hamilton was never able to actually fight for that race win. And then we have Alpine with 8th and 9th, 6th and 9th, and that was mainly because Alonso got a lot of positions in that opening lap, and that's what you're looking for. Can someone like Alonso get in a good position and get off the line quick enough to get people around that first corner? Because it's so slow, you can actually make up time. But be careful, your drivers can get pushed out wide at the exit of turn 1, which is what we've seen last year. The Mercedes finished how they started. Ferrari 5th and 6th down to 5th and 7th, and then the McLaren's 10th and 13th to 10th and 11th. So if we look at that, and now we go to this year, we should not be concerned at all that Red Bull is that low. But here is the caveat. Red Bull last year was built with a high rake concept, which was very in favor of these type of circuits. Last week, Verstappen was a rocket ship on a straight line speed, which means that he's probably going to be able to rocket at Monza as well. So then the question is, because they're also a little bit heavier than the Ferraris, can they get that time back during race? Here's the issue. If they're too heavy, if the car isn't designed for these tight corners again, that means, are they going to be able to catch up people during the race itself if there's a lot of traffic? We saw Perez was able to do it last year, but remember, the car was built differently. But I believe that they're going to get their issues solved, and we have to pay attention to FP3, because if they're not improving their time, that's bad. If they are improving their time, then that means that they are fine. But McLaren is looking like a really good pair of drivers to keep an eye out for. Which brings us now to our third statistical secret about streaks. Now, I did tell you that the McLarens are guys to watch out for, but realize that the Alpines are the sneaky ones. Let me share with you our quali and race streaks. Verstappen and Sainz both eligible for +5 points quali streak. That's going to make it a little interesting, because if Sainz has the pace, he's good to keep on your team. Verstappen may be a little too expensive, depending on your lineup, and we'll see that when we get to there. Alpine as a constructor can give you +5 points for quali. I will not recommend you do Alpine as a constructor. Ferrari is an option, because Ferrari is eligible for a power streak. That's +5 points for quali, top 10 finish, and the race streak +10 points, a total of 15. And they are a good option, barring reliability. But Leclerc did get a brand new set. Sainz, we haven't seen any big announcements about that, but he's been keeping his engine pretty well. That brings us now to our race streaks. Ocon and Alonso, both Alpine drivers, are eligible for a race streak, +10 points. Ocon and Alonso, I think having those guys on your team, or one of them at least, would be good. Which now brings us to Russell. Just like with Hamilton last week, he is eligible for a power streak this week. The curse of the power streak. Hamilton DNF. Does that mean Russell is going to? Well, check FP3. I don't think Russell is going to be doing something stupid around these type of corners, because what happened with Hamilton and Alonso last race is they came to a corner where Hamilton says he was in my blind spot, I cut in, whatever their explanations for, he caused that crash with Alonso by turning in. Because of the banked corners around Zandvoort, I don't think Russell's going to have this problem of not being able to see a guy just by the nature of the corners. But like I said, pay attention to the exit of corner 1, because that's where a lot of guys get pushed wide at the beginning of the race. And as long as he can be safe, then he probably should not be having any sort of crashes. And the Mercedes is very reliable, so he should be able to have the pace in the car to keep him in the top 10. It's now time for my picks, the F1FantasyTools.com. I've been sharing it a few times. This can help you if you just put in your budget here on the right that I highlighted. Boom, it'll show you the best options for your team. A lot of these teams are picking Ferrari, having Turbo of Sainz, having Russell, having the 2 Ocons, having Norris, or having Leclerc as an option. As you can see though, these are similar things that a good guy, if you haven't followed him on Twitter, do give it a go. F1 Fantasy Tips. Here are some of his lineups. Having Red Bull, he's having to decide how many points you're going to get for Red Bull versus Ferrari. And so he has some options here. And you can see this one also running very similar to what was shown in the Fantasy Tools. He actually has pretty much the same price as me, except he got it all during his wild card in the summer break, and then another Ferrari lineup. So speaking of Ferrari versus Red Bull, let's look at the price point. You can find the link in the description below for my spreadsheet. The price point compares 2 teams, and you can hit me up on Twitter, you can hit me up in the Discord, you can hit me up on Reddit, wherever, and if you like a price point, I can run these numbers for you. Here, we're just gonna compare Red Bull to Ferrari. Now remember, Ferrari can get plus 15 points for their power streak. And so Red Bull, over the course of the season, a much better option. Look at all these yellows. And so that means it's got a better points per million, better value estimation, better points over the season, better average, better race average. So the last 3 race average, 70 points per race versus Ferrari's 39. And as you can see, 60 to 47. Well, let's do the math real quick. You open up your little calculator and you go 60 minus 47, that's 13 points. So then the question is, 15 points for Ferrari will gain you net 2 points. Now, if Ferrari are finishing 1-2 though, that would completely change things. But if they're not finishing 1-2, then are those plus 15 points going to be worth it? And that's where you now have to come to your budget. So you have a budget of 32.6 for Red Bull versus a 25.8. And you could say, what can I do if I am saving 6.8 million? So that's what you got to decide. But before we look at my lineups, I do want to promo to you before you miss it, our 1 race challenge. I make a 1 chance, 1 team entrant, 1 opportunity for you to get your team for the best of the rest. You can find the code on the screen or in the description below. As we can see, it's been a busy week. I've only gotten this video out. We have 10 people. Thank you for joining us. If we can get 40 more of you to join, that means we can be eligible in the large leagues. When we do our internet's best lineups video, hopefully in the next week or so, I'll be able to show the results from Belgium as well as the Netherlands. And you guys did an amazing job at Belgium in our 1 race challenge. So if you are the top 3 teams, then you get a special podium ceremony at the next internet's best lineups video. And don't forget, we take base points. That means that we take out the mega driver so that it's as fair as possible. And so don't forget to join. Now to my lineups. You can see here on the left, I've got a budget of 108.7 million, on the right 107.8, and so it's about $0.9 million difference. Team 2 though is over 100 points more, and that is mainly due to how I use my mega drivers this last half of the season. So here on the left and the right, you will see that the only difference is between one having Leclerc and one having Norris. And so having Alonso already on the team is good for me. And let's look at team 1 with the larger budget. If I feel like Red Bull is still worth to keep, because even though Ferrari might have the power streak, is it going to finish 1-2? I'm going to wait till FP3 is finished for that sort of decision. And I want to hedge my bets with Leclerc and Sainz, but I want to get in on that thing. Maybe I will drop Magnussen, and let's see if we can get in Ocon. Okay, I'm over by 2.8 million, and then you say, well, Perez, you drop Perez and you bring in, oh, could I actually Russell? No, that'd be way too much money. I'm like breaking the bank here. Let's say I dropped Leclerc, then I got 10 million left over. Albon, he was looking good in FP1, FP2. I didn't really highlight him. So if I win a Russell power streak, This is fascinating because if you wanted to go all in with Red Bull and then switch out to Ferrari and get that other power streak, that gives you 9.2 million. So then the question is, I've already made too many subs. Oops, undo all. Let's not do that. So we're going to keep Red Bull because in the long term, that's who to keep, right? So then I have to think with only 3 subs, who am I going to bring in, bring out? So for example, if Magnussen's out and Albon's in, if I'm going to end up turboing Sainz and I'm going to keep Leclerc because he's a fresh new engine. If I bring out Perez, that's 19.7. Yeah, see, Russell's a little too expensive. He might be really worth those points though. That means I would have to, let's do the easy thing. Always do a lower driver. So if you have Ocon in for him and then Russell in here. So now I know that next week, Russell can go back to Leclerc, Ocon can go back up to Perez. I would have to price point this to see if this is worth it, but that's at a 15 plus 5, 20 plus 10, 30, 40. That could be a swing of 40 points. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts about that lineup. Okay, let's see for lineup 2. If I wanted to go the Ferrari route, they're trending downward though, so they're not a money pick at this point, so it might be worth the keep. So it's 12. So if Norris, who is looking really good, if I wanted to keep him, recognizing that maybe he doesn't give me those points, if I drop Magnussen, I should now be able to, with 18.3, be able to pick up Ocon. But let me switch him out to Russell and see how much I would have left. Ooh, this is looking good. So then that means with 12.4 million, I could have Ocon. Hey, look at that lineup. That could be cool because the Norris would be the one difference between those two teams. Now the question is the Ferrari with the power streak going to give me enough points to justify having Norris as a less option? But as you see, there's no Albon on here, and Norris probably should be getting more points than Albon, but then there's no Leclerc. So there's going to be a trade-off between these two teams. But yes, let me know in the comments below what you think about these teams, who you're going to be running with. And there we have it. Do not forget, watch FP3, keep tabs on reliability, but more importantly, are you seeing those drivers improving their times? If they're not on an upward trajectory, even though FP3 doesn't really help us with our projections for qualifying because it's at a different time, whereas FP2 is the closest to qualifying time, you still want to see, are they improving? If they're not improving, then that could be your red flag. But hopefully, the drivers that you pick are going to stay out of trouble, stay out of traffic, and be able to keep their pace for the duration of the race. And so until next time, I'll see you on the pit wall.